The US cavalry of the American Civil War was a laboratory for experimenting with state-of-the-art new firearms concepts. Most of the troops were equipped with breech-loading carbines of various types, but some unlucky horsemen still received obsolete arms such as the Model 1855 single-shot percussion pistol carbine. Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Capandball here, your favorite gun channel in beautiful bright English language, and what I have for you today is nothing less than the last single-shot percussion pistol of the US Army. This is the Model 1855 Pistol Carbine that was intended for cavalry use and for artillery use as well. This is not the first part of the series. The first part of the series is actually dealing with its cartridges. You can learn how to make these. And you can also hear a bit about the history of the Burton Minier. The second part is dealing with the Maynard style percussion tape primer. Now, this is a very interesting design that is integrated into the lock plate of the Model 1855 rifle muskets and the pistol carbines and the pistols as well. And this third part is actually dealing with its history. And of course, I'm going to shoot a lot this pistol on the range to see how it's performing today. But before we go on, let me thank you for your support. Your donation through Patreon are vital for keeping the quality of the channel high. On patreon.com/capandball you can find exclusive content from me time by time. We are also present on the History of Weapons and War platform. That's an excellent hiding place for gun nuts like us with thousands of videos from educational channels. Please subscribe, like, share, comment, because that will help the channel grow. Thank you very much. So this is a cavalry carbine. Well, actually it's a really long barrel pistol with a detachable stock, which is wobbling, but I will talk about that later. But before we start talking about the importance of this gun, let me tell a few things about the US cavalry of the first half of the 19th century. So first of all, the US cavalry was much smaller in organization and also had completely different purpose than the cavalry of the European armies, the contemporary European armies. In Europe, the standing armies were established to fight the similar kind of large number standing armies encountered on the European continent. Now, the US Army is different. The US cavalry is actually, let's say, a tool of force projection, and it was mainly intended to fight irregular opponents. Well, regular also, because in the Mexican War, the Mexican army was in fact a regular army, but in size and in organization and in professionalism, it was much less than any kind of European armies. Let me give you a bit of comparison to understand more the size of the US cavalry compared to a European power. Let's compare it to Austria. The Austrian army of the 1840s, 50s had altogether 37 cavalry regiments, including 12 hussar regiments, all coming from Hungary, by the way, 8 cuirassier regiments, 7 chevalier regiments, 6 dragoon regiments, and 4 ulan regiments or lancer regiments, so altogether 37. In the same period, just before the American Civil War, the US cavalry had only 6 cavalry regiments. That's a great difference. And this is quite understandable because the North American continent was kind of a safe place against the European military powers, meaning that after settling the conflict with Mexico in the 1840s, the US cavalry was able to focus on its original role to aid the expansion, to project power in the western parts of the country, to help the occupation of the areas from the Native Americans. This is actually very close to the European concept of small war, where you are also operating with a limited force on a large area. For this kind of warfare, the dragoon concept or the mounted infantry concept is just excellent. And the establishment of the US regular cavalry is actually based on the dragoon concept, because when President Andrew Jackson in 1833 authorized the establishment of the first cavalry regiment, well, that was a dragoon regiment. It was the first dragoon regiment. And in 1836 it was followed by the second. So from a tactical point of view, the US dragoon had to fight on horseback as a cavalryman and also had to fight dismounted with a carbine as an infantryman. So they had a dual training. Now, Among the commissioned staff of the 1st Dragoon Regiment, there were such interesting military personalities as Jefferson Davis, the later Secretary of War of the United States, and also the first and last President of the Confederacy. Now, the armament of the Dragoon soldiers was quite interesting. It is actually very close to the armament of the Austrian Hussars. So first of all, they were armed with a saber. Second, they had a pair of flintlock pistols on the two sides of the saddle. And third, they had a carbine, and that carbine was a breech-loading carbine with a sliding bayonet. It was called the North Hall breech-loading carbine. It was a smoothbore 58 caliber gun. In 1845, a new kind of cavalry regiment was authorized by the Act of the Congress. It was called the Regiment of Mounted Riflemen. The concept of the mounted rifleman was different from the dragoon concept, because the riflemen had to use the horse to get to the point of the action, and they dismounted and they fought only with rifles. They were armed with 1841 Mississippi rifles. In 1855, two more cavalry regiments were added to the line. It was the 1st and the 2nd Cavalry. Now, they were light cavalry troops, which means that they were equipped with sabers and revolvers, and they had to fulfill the law of light cavalry, so they were intended to fight on horseback. Just before the Civil War, the 3rd Cavalry Regiment was established also, meaning that at the beginning of the conflict, the US Army had altogether 6 cavalry regiments. These are the close reproductions of the original cartridge charged with 40 grains of black powder and an expanding Burton Minier bullet. I'll check the accuracy of the pistol carbine from a distance of 30 meters with the stock attached to the pistol grip.
Azt a mekkorát szól.
Now, this was the carbine with the stock. This was the first shot. It is keyholing, ladies and gentlemen. The bullet was perfect, I know, because it was measured. Of course, it is a bit heavier than the original bullet because it's a 509 or 10 grain bullet. And the original was only 450, but the shape is very close to that. The other two, well, I wouldn't say that for a carbine that's a good group. And I pretty much understand why the soldiers did not really like that pistol carbine. But at this distance, at 30 meters, it's in the size of a human head, which is technically means that from this distance you can hit one single enemy soldier. You can hit a single enemy horseman as well. That's a bigger target, but still It's not really good, but... So we are in the middle of the 1850s when the Ordnance Department is working on the new rifle musket family, the 1855 Springfield rifle musket family. And the person in charge is Colonel Henry K. Craig. He's the chief of ordnance who is responsible for developing the new arms. And he's proposing a new arm for the cavalry and the artillerymen as well. And that arm will be the model 1855 Pistol Carbine. On June 26, 1855, he proposed the following to Jefferson Davis, Secretary of War. 0.58 inches proposed for all small arms. 10 inch for the barrel of the pistol, which barrel, being also provided with a suitable stock, will answer for dragon or artillery carbine, for which a range of 500 yards will fit it. A small lock with magazine for 25 primers will serve either for the pistol or artillery carbine. 500 yards for a carbine or a pistol carbine like this or a pistol like this, well, that is quite over-optimistic. Okay, you can say that at this distance, of course, not a single enemy soldier is the target, but let's say an enemy close combat formation. But let's not forget that the dragoons and the US artillerymen were trained to fight an irregular war, which means that they seldom encountered close combat formations. So we cannot question that concept, I think. On July 5th, 1855, Jefferson Davis approved the arm, but in the meantime the Ordnance Department was still working on the gun concept because they were not happy with the penetration of the bullet. So they decided to increase the barrel length from 10 inches to 12 inches. Well, it surely contributes to the muzzle velocity, but I doubt that it made any difference to the performance of that gun. The production started in the fall of 1855 and it only lasted for a bit more than a year. Up until 1857, altogether 4,019 pistol carbines were manufactured in the Springfield Armory and also another 3 at Harper's Ferry. Let's talk about the specifications of this pistol. So the barrel length is 12 inches and it is a rifled bore. It is the same rifled bore as in the case of the 1855 Springfield rifle muskets, meaning it is 58 caliber with 3 lands and grooves. It's a progressive depth rifling and the twist rate is 1 turn in 72 inches. Now, the bore of my pistol is not shiny. I would say it is 80–85% in quality, which means I have some rusted spots inside. Let's look into the bore now. I would not say this is the best ever military rifle bore that I saw, but anyway, even if it is not shiny new, it's around 80–85% as I told you, the rifling is still visible, so probably it will be able to grab that mini bullet. The carbine is equipped with a dovetailed rear sight. The first sleeve serves for 100 yards. The second one, this is for 200. And the third one, it is for 300 and 400. Now, if you are shooting to 300, there's a peephole here. You look through that little tiny aperture here. And for 400, you can use the top of the sight. Over-optimistic, as I told you. I seriously doubt that you can hit anything smaller than an elephant at 100 yards with this carbine. The pistol is equipped with a steel swivel ramrod, meaning that it is attached to the gun and you cannot lose it while you're on horseback. This is quite common on cavalry arms and navy arms, for example. Now, the grip of the pistol is equipped with a lanyard ring, meaning that you can secure that pistol to your leather belt or to your saddle. So when you're using it as a pistol, you will not lose it. But if you're using it as a carbine, it also has some sling swivels. One is on the barrel band and one is on the bottom of the buttstock. Probably the most distinctive part of this pistol carbine is the detachable buttstock. Now, this is removable from the pistol grip and it attaches with a catch. To remove the stock, you have to loosen this screw here and push it like a button to release the catch. It's a spring catch that will grab the steel frame on the back of the pistol grip. And there you go, it's back. Let's check the pistol use with the same cartridge at the same distance. The distance is 30 meters again. has a kick. Very good. So there is no such big improvement. Well, here is one shot. This was the first one, this was the third one, and the second. Who knows? The trigger pull is very, very heavy. The pistol is clumsy. It is pulling your hand down continuously because of the long 12-inch barrel. So I completely agree that what is meant for both purposes is actually meant for none of them. So all in all, it's fun to shoot it, but not a carbine, not a pistol, somewhere in between, useless compared to other military carbines of the time. Let's remember that we have Sharps, we have Burnside, we have Merrill, we have Star by that time. We even have lever action rifles like the Henry, the Spencer. So I would not be happy to have this pistol as a Civil War soldier, that's for sure. Interestingly, no matter how hard you tighten that screw, the stock will still wobble. And this was an issue back in the 19th century as well. The pistols and the buttstocks, they were numbered together, they were batched together by numbers ranging from 1 to 20, meaning that pistol number 13 matched the buttstock number 13. And although this pistol was manufactured with interchangeability in mind, well, this raises some questions, of course. Now, the size of the lock on the pistol carbine is around 10% smaller than the lock of the 1855 Springfield rifle musket, but it is also featuring the Maynard type tape priming system. It accepted a smaller tape primer and also a shorter tape primer because of the smaller compartment, of course. Now, if you are interested in how to make the priming tapes for this pistol, then please visit my Patreon page, patreon.com/capandball. Here you will find the full version of the video about the Maynard tape priming system, where I will show you how to make a working copy of the original tape priming. And it's quite easy to make, so tune in. The left side of the stock of my pistol carbine is marked with 2 cartouches. The first one in a square frame. It is probably standing for JWR. It is quite faint, so I'm not sure about it. This can stand for James Wolfe Ripley. He was the superintendent of the Springfield Armory until he was transferred to the Watertown Arsenal in 1854. So, well, he could be an inspector, but in 1855 he was not in the arsenal. So probably this 3-letter cartouche can be SWP as well, who stands for Samuel W. Porter. Well, he was a very, very long time employee of the Springfield Armory And at the end of his career, from 1879 to 94, he was actually the master armorer of the armory. The other cartouche in a round circle seems to be a monogram of JS. This can be associated to James Stillman. Well, he was a really long time employee of the arsenal because he served there from 1835 to 1891. That's a long career. Although he was the foreman of the stocking department, he also inspected arms. From altogether, 12 years from his career was an inspector's career. And just to bring these people closer to you, let me show you an interesting picture that I found on the webpage of the US National Park Service. This image was taken in 1886 and it shows the stockers of the Springfield Armory. They are holding their gauges, they are holding their tools. The two old men in the front center of the image are Samuel W. Porter to the left in dark suit and James Stillman to the right. It is so interesting to look into the eyes of those people who were actually inspecting this particular pistol. Well, this is touching. Now, the cartridge of the pistol carbine held only 40 grains of musket powder, not 60 grain as in case of the rifle musket cartridge, and the bullet was also lighter. It was only 450 grains instead of 500 grains. The outer shape of the bullet was exactly the same, but the cavity was deeper and the skirt was thinner. That's where the bullet lost 50 grains of weight. Now, if you are interested in the history of this cartridge and the making of this cartridge, then please check the first part of this series. Let's check now what could have been the muzzle velocity of the carbine cartridge fired from the pistol carbine. "221. Not the fastest thing on earth." Although the muzzle velocity is low, this is still 791 joules of muzzle energy. That is close to the energy of a .357 Magnum round. Having a lighter bullet with a lighter charge for a carbine, I think that's a good concept. It's validated. But using the same rifling twist as in case of a rifle musket for a short barrel pistol like this, well, that's not a wise idea. That tells me that this carbine was actually developed in a rush. The history of the pistol carbine is connected to well-known military personnel, and the first action of the carbine is also connected to one. In 1857, a company of the 1st Cavalry was sent out to punish Cheyenne warriors raiding wagon trains. One of the lieutenants of this detachment was called Jeb Stuart. He will become quite famous in the American Civil War. Now, some of these carbines also saw action in September the same year against the Apache warriors, when a detachment of the 1st Dragoons were sent out for a raid against them. The captain of the Company G, called Richard Ewell, reported that out of the 45 carbines, 19 was malfunctioning because of breaking hammers, because of breaking pistol grips. The break here you see is quite often visible on pistol carbines like this. And this captain also reported that the stock is wobbling. The attachment is not secure, which is rendering this pistol carbine useless for dragoon use. Let's check now the accuracy of the pistol carbine shot from the rest. The distance is the same 30 meters as before. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the 30-meter group from arrest with the pistol carbine, and I really have to say that it is just inaccurate for my taste. The bore is not perfect. It is around 85% in quality, which means that, of course, the new one could be a bit better. But still, 3 shots are in a group of a human head at 30 meters, which is absolutely not good for a carbine like this. And I even have a bullet that is keyholing. It just impacted sideways. You can see the silhouette of the bullet completely on the cut on the paper. So, ladies and gentlemen, I really have to say that this pistol was born in an age when the firearms techniques were much more advanced than in the Napoleonic times, and still it entered service. But anyway, it's an interesting piece of history. Now, this carbine was already obsolete when it entered service, but at the beginning of the American Civil War, the US cavalry needed everything that could throw a piece of lead in the direction of Johnny Reb, so most of the pistol carbines saw action. So the 9th Illinois, 1st Indiana, 2nd, 5th and 6th Kansas, 4th Missouri, 2nd Ohio, and the 1st and 2nd West Virginia were partially armed with these clumsy arms. The largest quantity of pistol carbines was issued to the 1st Indiana, namely 260 pieces. And the limited number remained in service up until the end of the Civil War. We also know that in 1880 there were still 332 pieces in the New York arsenal that were sold in the same year to the public as surplus arm. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. You've been watching the Capandball YouTube channel. If you like what I do, then please subscribe, like, share, comment. Please support us on patreon.com/capandball, where you will find exclusive content from me, and be a member of the History of Weapons and War platform. Until next time, stay cool and keep your powder dry.